Hi everyone and welcome to Global AI Notes. We will hear talk from Ayça Baş about Teams AI library and building customer agent copilots.
Hello.
Nice to meet you. Welcome.
Nice to meet you, Alexander. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much. Hi all. I'm Alex, Microsoft AI from Germany, and I have a pleasure to welcome Ayça Baş from Microsoft today. And we will hear talk about a dev talk about Teams AI library and building custom AI, custom agent copilots. I'm sorry. And yeah, what is about? What is this talk about?
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Alexander. So excited to be here all. My name is Ayça Baş. I'm a cloud developer advocate at Microsoft. And as Alexander mentioned, we will talk about how you can build your own Copilot using Teams AI library. And I'll give you brief information about the tooling and the library itself. And then we will dive in and write some code to actually see how it works in action.
Okay, great. Yeah, if the audience have any question, let us know in the chat. And we will follow up this after the presentation. So Ayça, please welcome. The stage is yours. And if you're ready,
okay, awesome. Yeah.
we can start. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, let's get started. As I mentioned, today we're going to talk about how you can build your own Copilot with Teams AI library. And before we jump into the actual coding and how things work, I want to start with a brief introduction. We will briefly talk about Copilot stack today, and then I'll introduce you Teams AI library if you've never heard before. This is the library that helps you build your own Copilot for Microsoft 365 ecosystem, and there are a lot of benefits that comes with the library itself. And in terms of building our own experiences, Copilot experiences, we will use Teams Toolkit as the extension for Visual Studio Code. Okay, let's jump in. As you all know, the Copilot extensions and the Copilot stack has two ways of building experiences. One way is extending Copilot, Microsoft Copilot itself, and the other way is building your own Copilot. You can either use low code and pro code. We're going to mostly focus on the pro code and use Visual Studio Code, but you can also use low code options to build your own Copilot as well. And a brief introduction, what are Copilot extensions? There are several ways you can extend Copilot. The first way is graph connectors. You can actually ground your existing data and bring your own data to Copilot. You can also build plugins that are actually apps, and you can bring your own APIs instead of injecting your own data. And you can customize the way plugins work because it's just a proper way of building apps. And the final way basically is the copilots, building your own copilots. Today we will focus mostly on building your own user experiences, building your own copilot. And this way we will actually use custom models, custom orchestrator, and this will all come from Teams AI library. All the goodies are actually available in one single library, and I'll show you briefly in a second. What are our building blocks when it comes to building our own Copilot for Microsoft 365? As you all know, we need large language models, orchestrators, models, and data. And we are combining AI library with bot framework to handle actions and triggers and all sorts of intent detection in our custom Copilots. And the idea here is that bringing your either existing bots or building your LLM-powered bots from scratch. And today we are going to actually build bots, custom engine copilots using Teams AI library. And finally, the user experience, which is the most important part. We want our apps, our copilots, to look and feel like Copilot. That's where the user experience comes in, with streaming, citations, feedback looping, all these components that we already have in Microsoft Copilot on Teams or on Microsoft365.com. We can also adjust the UX for our own Copilot using Teams AI Library. All these powerful toolings that make your Copilot unique and look like Copilot experience is also available in Teams AI Library, like citations and feedback looping. And briefly, the conversational and contextual, what is actually different today compared to the bots we had a couple years back is actually today we can use large language models. We can bring large language models into our custom copilots using Teams AI Library. Plus, we can also bring Microsoft 365 components in the interface. So what Teams AI Library does in the backend is making prompt engineering and moderation easier, making actions and intent detection quite easier, letting you use your own models behind the scene, and basically building everything on top of the Microsoft 365 ecosystem with the unique components like feedback, looping, citations, etc. So, okay, let's jump in. My favorite part is actually the hands-on part. So I want to start from the chat playground in Azure OpenAI. You can also use Azure AI Studio, which I think will be the permanent one for us. Today, what we're building is actually Career Genie. Career Genie is an HR assistant which can help you with some of the HR related questions. So Career Genie is quite helpful, friendly, but at the same time, we have a huge data source behind the scenes with resumes. The number of resumes where some of them are in German, some of them are in Japanese, some of them have, let's say, 5 years experience, 6 years experience, experience in JavaScript, experience in Python, etc. Very diverse profiles. And we actually want Career Genie to help us find the right candidates for our open positions. So this is a scenario we use in different workshops, and I'll talk about it in a second at the end of the session. And I think it's quite easy to understand how retrieval augmented generation works with Teams AI Library in Microsoft 365 ecosystem too. The reason why we pick scenarios with retrieval augmented generation is because Teams AI Library today lets you also use Azure AI Search as data source behind the scene, and that's what we are doing in this demo as well. Okay, so I'll start with a basic prompt. I already prepared this here, and I'll paste in the system message. Let me quickly show you what I have here. It's pretty basic. You are a career specialist named Career Genie, helps human resources team find the right candidate for jobs. You're friendly, professional, and greet users, etc., etc. So all these useful information for assistance behavior. And then I want to add data source I prepared earlier. You can use upload files, and you can upload your own files. I already prepared my data, so I'll just go to Azure AI Search, and this is my AI search service, and then I'll choose resumes as the index. I want to apply vector search as well because my data set has multiple languages, multiple experiences, like it's quite diverse. So I think vector search will be quite helpful for me. And this is my embedding model to apply vector search, and I'll select next. Here, I want to apply vector as search type, but you can also choose hybrid semantic, which would be also helpful for your scenario. I'll choose API key, and my data will be connected in a second. Before I jump into chatting, I want to show you my data set actually and how it looks like, so that you will have a bit of understanding why I'm asking those questions and why what are the parameters I'm looking for in the job roles, etc. So I'll hit search, and this is the format I have without vector field. If you want to add vector field, you can actually select content vector here, save the changes, and you'll see the vector embeddings here as well in the data set. But quickly, let's have a look what we have here. We have different set of candidates, and each candidate has its own resume written in their native languages. Let's say we have Arabic here, we have Spanish, we have some Turkish, so it's quite diverse. And in terms of the experience, we also have diverse level of experience, like 2 years or experience in different programming languages. And I should say this data set is basically developers only. So we will be searching mostly for developer profile. Okay, so let's go back and start asking questions. I'll say hi, and I want to see actually if we get the behavior from this prompt. And as we mentioned here, we want to see emojis, friendliness, etc. And we see Career Genie super friendly already using emojis. So let me ask something like, can you suggest candidates with 5+ years of experience? Nothing particular at this point, but I want to see if we are able to retrieve data at this point. Okay, so seems like we are getting some suggestions. And as you can see, we also have citations. So Azure already has built-in citation in the playground where we can see the references. We pretty much want to have a similar experience in Teams in our own Copilot as well. When we click, we actually want to review the resumes, etc. It would be super helpful for us. And we want to bring this experience in our own ecosystem like Microsoft 365. So the easiest way you can bring this experience into Microsoft 365 is actually clicking Deploy To, and you can select a new Teams app, and you can give it a name like Career Genie and download the source code. This source code comes with your prompt, your data integration with Azure AI Search, and also the model you're using. Here, we are actually using GPT-4, and all the setup pre-built for you, and you will just have to run your code. I'm already running this app, so let me quickly jump in here. And just to not lose any time, I'm already running the app itself. I'll show you in a second. But quickly, I want to introduce you how Teams App Library looks like, what tooling we're using behind the scene, and also how you can get started building your own. Okay, so in our Career Genie app, you actually see we have app.ts. This is our main file where we built all of the connections with Azure OpenAI. We built our prompt manager, etc., etc. And you can also build this app from scratch using Teams Toolkit. Teams Toolkit is actually a Visual Studio Code extension that helps you build apps from scratch. There are multiple templates you can use integrated already with Azure AI. And there are several options for RAG as well. So you can just use Teams Toolkit to build apps from scratch. It also helps you debug your app easily. So this is the tooling we're using. This extension is actually helping us run our own Copilot behind the scene. You just need to log in with your account. And my account is a developer tenant where I have access to Teams, and I can sideload my app on Teams. In terms of the source code, in app.ts, let me start from here actually. We start using some of the components that are coming from Teams library. This is pre-installed for my app that I download from Azure OpenAI Studio. And these are the imports I'm using. Let's start with OpenAI model. OpenAI model actually helps us connect with our Azure OpenAI model. We only need key, deployment name, and OpenAI endpoint. And also we need to define Azure API version that helps us connect, basically make the right API call behind the scene. And after making all of the integrations with our Azure OpenAI model, the next step for us is the prompting. So here I have a prompt manager that helps me use my prompt behind the scene. As you remember, we defined our prompt in the system message in Azure OpenAI Studio. Here there are two ways. Either you can actually put your system message in config.json, and this is just going to be the same with the config, all the setup in Azure OpenAI, or we actually have a better way if you want to have like multiple prompts, etc. We have a folder for prompts. Under chat, we already have this skprompt.txt. This is the place we put all of our behavior-related prompt system message for our app. So instead of using config.json, I prefer to pass my behavior past my system message using prompt.txt. This is helpful because if you want to have multiple prompts for different actions in the future, then you will have much more flexibility with this option. Then once we read our prompt from this path, prompts folder, next step for us is defining the planner. Teams AI library also help us define our action planner. And here there are several components needed. First one is the model. Second one is the prompt. And the third one here, we are using a default prompt. We are actually defining a function. So there's a reason why we defined a function here. First, as I mentioned, there are two options we can define the behavior of our custom engine copilot. Either you can define everything in config.json, but then you need to pass all of your keys, all of your data through this config.json. And I don't recommend this way because it's not secure. Instead, we are actually defining some parameters here like search endpoint, index name, and we are passing all of the data securely inside the default prompt. So this code basically helps us use the right keys and endpoints using the parameters instead of just putting all the information inside config.json. So instead, if you don't want to do this, write all this code, you can just put everything here you get from Azure OpenAI Studio. And the next step for you is just default prompt will be equal to chat folder. That's all. But just to keep it secure and make sure that our keys are in secure places, I definitely suggest you to use this way. And finally, we need storage for our app. And for the sake of the demo, I'm using memory storage. And in the final step, we are defining the app. App being here our AI app. This replaced in bot framework, this actually replaced the bot handler. So instead of using the bot handler, we are using Teams AI library application. So whenever we ask any questions like, hi, find me some .NET developers, etc., we always hit the app. And I can also show you in the index.ts here. If you're a bot developer, bot framework user for several years, you know that we always call bot.run. Now we actually call this, we actually listen app.run. So every time when user asks any question, we hit the app, which has its own planner and its own storage, and planner itself has model, prompts, etc. So this time we are actually leveraging all of the models behind the scene, all of the orchestrator, etc. There are several other components I will talk later, like the feedback loop, etc., how we can customize the citation. But let's quickly have a look how this app actually looks like without making any adjustments. Okay, let me see. Okay, this is our app. I pre-run the app just to make sure we don't lose any time. And let me again say hi to make sure app is working. It's not sleeping. This is the exact same prompt, exact same behavior in config.json. We have the same setup that we had in Azure OpenAI, and we are getting similar behavior. Let's check if we are now getting our data from Azure AI Search. Let's ask similar question like, can you suggest me developers with 5+ years of experience? And we can ask other questions like developers who have experience in Python and able to speak Spanish, etc. I'll ask them later and see how it responds. And behavior should be similar. And I'll also briefly talk about what comes as default in Teams AI library. Okay, so several things comes as default with Teams AI Library. First, like AI generated label. This label comes as default when you start using Teams AI Library to build your own Copilot. And citation, if you integrate with Azure AI Search, citation comes as default as well. But if you want to customize this experience, let's say you want to see the full PDF, you want to get more information out of the PDF, then you can use adaptive cards to customize this experience. I'll show you in a second. There are a couple of things we can add on top of these default experiences. But let's focus on the answer first. We actually got a really good result, and we have some candidates who have more than 5 years of experience. Let's check. Can you suggest developers who have experience in Python and able to speak Spanish? I'm not really sure if we have any Spanish-speaking Python developers in the data set, but let's try our chance. The worst case, we should be able to see some candidates related to what we ask. Maybe not 100%, but something closer. Let's wait. Okay, so we get some suggestions, Spanish-speaking, and okay, yeah, we at least have one. Marina actually speaks Spanish and also have knowledge in Python. Okay, my final change here will be actually adding feedback loop, and I'll just uncomment this. And if you want to manipulate the data you get from, uncomment, from feedback loop, you will be able to manipulate data by just using app.feedbackloop. Here you can, I'm just returning console log, but you can actually save this feedback in your database. And also, this is a customized citation with adaptive card. I want to quickly show you. Here, if I need to quickly walk you through, we get the citation from the response and we pass the data using adaptive cards. And my adaptive card is pre-built. I added my adaptive card here. And finally, there are some customizations I added in the adaptive card as well. First, sensitivity label. I defined that this data is confidential, so don't share outside of your organization. Second is generated by AI label. This comes as default, but if you're using adaptive card, you need to define this again in your adaptive card to make sure that this data also goes with AI label, even though you're sending the message with adaptive card. Okay, let's try again and see what's going to be the response. I'll actually ask the same question, not to lose time, and see what will be the result. And if you want to see and debug how things work, you can also check out the terminal. You will see all of the content and what we retrieve as data source. Okay, this is my customized adaptive card. And it says, I'm sorry, but there are actually several candidates. First, we have AI-generated content. Second, we have sensitivity label. This is important for a lot of our customers because we want to make sure that this message is sent with the sensitivity label. If you want to see what is inside the PDF, as I mentioned earlier, with citations, with customized citations, you can actually get full PDF. Or if you want like better looking UI, you can actually put a link as 1, 2, 3. And when you click to it, you will be directed to PDF or you will download the PDF, etc. So several customizations are available. And final thing I want to add here is the feedback loop. This feedback loop is the same thing we add here in this section. Let me check. Where was that? Okay, here. So we enable feedback loop, and then we are now using the feedback we gather. Here, I will just say global AI nodes rocks. And I can submit this. And once feedback is submitted, I should be able to see my feedback here too. And Obviously, in the production level, you will need to store this data somewhere, maybe in the cloud, in your database, according to your preference. But this is pretty much what I wanted to show you. And before I close this and go back to my slides, I actually, wait, let me go back to my slides. Actually, it will be easier for me to guide you along. Okay, so I want to heavily highlight the importance of Powered by AI Kit. We actually call Powered by AI Kit the ones that the citation, the feedback loop, all of the capabilities I added later on in the code, the AI labels, etc. This Powered by AI Kit is a part of Teams AI library as well, and it is important to use them if you want to build like customized Copilot-like looking apps. Okay. And finally, where you can find this code and how you can build your own. I heavily suggest you to go to Copilot Camp. This is a brand new content we created with our team. And in this content, you will be finding Career Genie step by step. You can actually build Career Genie from scratch, step by step. I want to close this section out by just showing you what Copilot Camp looks like. Copilot Camp is actually a workshop. You can consider it as a workshop, and it's in preview because we are still developing the content here. There are some labs available for extend, like extending Copilot using plugins or extending Copilot using API plugins, etc. And in this session is particularly related to build path. And in this labs, like we have 5 labs here, you can actually build Career Genie from scratch, adding all of the components step by step. So that's all I wanted to share in this session. If you have any questions, I think we can now jump into the question section.
Yes, sure. Thank you very much. The first question is, it was really quick to set up. What if I'm already developing and need a new setup? Is it also possible from Visual Studio to do something on a setup, or do I need to start on initial way that you showed?
You can use Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code to start from scratch. You just need Teams Toolkit installed for Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code, and you can use pre-built templates available in Teams Toolkit, and you can build your custom engine Copilot using one of the templates available. If you want to bring your existing setup into Microsoft 365, then you can just use Teams AI library, which is basically a library you can use in your app to get all of these Microsoft 365 related goodies, or you can also use the large language model and orchestration components of the library. So there are 2 ways, actually. The first way is using Teams Toolkit and use pre-built templates. And the second way is purely using the library itself by just installing the library to your app.
Okay, great. So your board was working on the data, and the session is of course on a data set. What if there are some changes? You set it up on the Azure Search, so there's no problem if your data in the behind will be changed then.
You're asking in the...
Yes.
So you're asking in the Copilot, custom Copilot perspective, right?
Yes.
If you change the data, it should reflect in real time. So if you change your data in Azure AI Search, when you ask the same question, then your data change should reflect in your custom engine Copilot in real time. And there shouldn't be any problem with your integration. You can use the same setup and integration, even if you change data.
Okay, and the next question was on AI safety. We have seen sensitivity labels there, so that's really important to build this one in. Are there any policy from the OpenAI Studio or Azure AI Studio that we can use also there, or do we have to build them on our own during the development?
So if there are some safety components you want to bring from Azure OpenAI or Azure AI, then you can use additional SDKs from Azure OpenAI or Azure AI to bring those additional safety components like content safety, for example. Some of them are already integrated with Teams AI Library, and the Teams AI Library product team is actually looking for more feedback, what is more useful, and what else we can bring in to the library itself. So this can be a really great feedback if you have, let's say, other components you really want to see in the library. But in addition to that, you can use external components outside of Teams AI Library to bring your own content safety too. And I will actually leave the Teams AI Library link here in the chat. So maybe Alexander, you can share the link with the audience too. And in this repo, this library is actually open source. You can see all of the samples, and as well as you can share feedback, create issues if you have any questions, etc.
Okay, sure. What we have seen also on Azure AI, Azure OpenAI Studio, it was just like in preview. So you can do the Copilot Studio, you can do to the web app, and you had this third option to do this one to the Teams and download the config and so on. The question is, so what time will this one be available also for preview for others, or perhaps also for public? Do you have any data?
So it is in public preview at the moment, so it's available for everyone. But this feature is announced at build, and we want to make sure we get enough feedback about the stability of the feature. So currently there is no date for the generally available, but it is open for everyone to test it in Azure OpenAI Studio, and later it will be integrated in Azure AI Studio too. And also, if any developers have feedback about how to improve it, I think it will help accelerate the generally available stage too.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So we have no questions left, I think. It was a great presentation. Thank you very much for your slides and also for the demo. It was a really great introduction, how to easy starting on this one. And it was a pleasure to meet you again. Thank you very much.
Likewise. Thanks for having me. It was a great session.
Thank you.